I don't know if I liked him as a character, but I thought he was a huge, like, you had to have him in there to make the Mistborn, right? You had to have that kind of arc. You had to have that kind of character. So I like him. As far as what he brings to the story, I didn't like him as a person. I give him a 6 out of 10.
What's up, my nerd?
Welcome, everyone, to the Credible Nerds podcast. My name is Justin, and here we are talking more about one of our favorite book series, the Cosmere. And this is written by Brandon Sanderson. We've done a couple of reviews, and we are starting from the beginning in our Cosmere commentary. And last time we did Elantris, we reviewed that, discussed that, so you can go check that out on our YouTube channel and kind of catch up there. And this time we're going to move into the Mistborn series. There's 2 kind of main stories right now with a third coming, and we are going to be talking the first trilogy, Mistborn 1, 2, and 3, and it starts with a book called The Final Empire, so that's where we'll be going first. But I want to welcome my fellow Mistborns. Mark, how you doing?
Doing good. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good, and we got Kyle with us too.
Hey, everybody. Nice to see you again.
So if you haven't read the book, I'm sorry, you should go read it right now. Just pause this podcast, go read it, come back, unpause, because we will be talking spoilers. We're assuming that you've read the book, and if you've stumbled upon this commentary, you've probably read it a couple of times. But just up front, this is for the casual nerd. We're not super hardcore. We try to be, but we can't remember everything. If you want to remember everything, go check out the 17th Shard or some of the wikis. There's a lot of good stuff there to kind of keep track of everything, because Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere is pretty detailed, a lot of stuff going on in this part of the universe, that part of the universe, so it's just hard to keep track of, but we do our best. Definitely like this podcast or this YouTube channel, subscribe to it, comment on the video. If we get something wrong, make sure you call us out and correct us. If we get it right, definitely do the same. Just be fair, right? If you're gonna call us out and correct us, praise us when we get it right. So, but we want to thank you guys for joining us, checking us out, being here with us. We really appreciate that. But yeah, let's get into Mistborn Book 1. And first of all, before we get into kind of a quick overview for my co-host Kyle and Mark, what was your first experience? Do you remember like the first time you read it? Did you like it? Were you like, oh, I can't wait for book 2? Kind of what was your general impressions of this book as you first read it? Mark, what do you think?
I honestly don't remember the first time I read it. I think you suggested it to me, and I remember you telling me you have to kind of get through the first part and then it picks up. Mm-hmm. And I remember reading the first part, and it was, a good story, but it wasn't gripping me. And then probably a third of the way through the book, it picked up. Like all of a sudden, okay, we're having some good stuff. We're having good story. I'm starting to get sucked in. Mm-hmm. And so that was really good advice, because I'm someone that will read, I like to read, but if I get through the first 50 pages or so and it's not good, I have a hard time keeping going. And so that, I pushed through a little bit there, and then I really enjoyed it. The last 2/3 of the book, not that the first third of the book wasn't great, but the last 2/3 of the book, I think I read the last 2/3 faster than I read the first third, right? So it was really good. I just remember first impressions being like, I set that book down. I was like, that was amazing. The magic system was something I'd never seen before, right? I mean, we all now know Brandon Sanderson's the creator of, every magic system ever thought of. And so really good book. I mean, I remember setting the book down and feeling like I wanted to read it again.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Pretty fair assessment. What about you, Kyle?
That's actually very similar. I had a friend of mine recommend it to me and dived into it. It gave me very similar advice that you got to get through the beginning, and then after that it picks up and it's a lot better. And just like you, Mark, if something isn't catching my attention after the first few hours of reading, I'm like, okay, I think I'm done. But got through this and kind of tried to take it like I did the original Lord of the Rings books, right? Where in the beginning of the Lord of the Rings books with the Fellowship, you're kind of like, all right, I got to get through the world building here, right?
Yeah.
And once I get into the meat of the story, it really picks up. And so once that happened, I loved the first book. Just like you, the last 2/3 are really where it starts to coalesce into a really gripping story, to set up the trilogy to actually, succeed in the end. And it kind of follows that. You ramp up to like the first book, and then the second book is a little bit of a dip, but then in the third book it comes back up, and it's just fantastic. So love the series, great story, and I think it's a great introduction to Scadrial.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much my thoughts on it as well. The first little bit, it doesn't really drag. It's just a lot of, hey, this is Vin, this is Kelsier, this is everything world building, like Kyle said. So for sure. Yeah. So as far as this book starting out, it starts out with a guy named Kelsier, who's one of the main characters in this book. He's working. He started out as this slave that was working in these mines, and he shows up again to kind of set the story off, kind of introduces us to him. He's a freedom fighter now. He's going against authority figures and the government, the final empire. And he wants to take down the Lord Ruler. So he gets together this crew of his friends. He used to be a thief and had his thieving crew, and they would pull these jobs throughout in the town that they are in. So he regathers them together. They all have different skills and abilities that we'll get into as far as with the magic system a little bit later. But he gathers them all together. They're going to pull this final job where they overthrow the government, and then he wants to kill the Lord Ruler, which is God, basically, for this planet that they're on. And so he says that, and they're like, "Oh, you're crazy." And he's like, "Yep, tell me something I don't know." He's super cocky and all that. But the key that comes into play throughout the rest of the series is there's a new person that joins this group called Vin. Her name's Vin. She's like a 14-year-old girl who also has this access to this magic system that we'll get into called Alllomancy. And so she joins the crew, and that kind of starts the story. They create this persona for her. She infiltrates the royalty and gets to know them, falls in love with one of them. And that's a whole piece of the story, is there's a love story, and how she's able to not only grow up, because she grew up on the streets as a slave. They call them Skas, Skaa. And the nobles look down on the Skas, and there's this whole power dynamic there. But so they fall in love. Kelsier is able to, and the crew, they're able to build an army, infiltrate the city. Mm-hmm. And as the story goes on, we'll get into that. It's not a spoiler, but we want to save kind of what happens there at the end for later in the podcast. So there's a lot of components to the story, which I liked. It wasn't just this, okay, it's over. It was, intrigue, political intrigue, kind of like an Ocean's 11 type story. It was a love story. There was a apprentice and master story. New world, new magic system that's not just wave your wand and magic comes out. It's very organized and intricate and many levels. Again, we'll get into that Alllomancy later. So as far as just like kind of the general story, great, lots of layers, and very, like we said, the first 50 pages, you're kind of introduced to everything, not a lot's going on, and then it gets better and better and better, and then we love it. So that's the story. Anything you guys want to add to that overview?
No, I mean, that's pretty right on, right? We've got a lot of different tropes going on. And a lot of the times I see people try this in different books, and it's like too big of a bite, right? It's hard to bring those together. But I think that Brandon Sanderson, the genius of his writing is he can do so many tropes and then make them gel really well. And even if it doesn't gel like in the second book, in the third book, it all gels, right? And I think that's what's so great about him, is that he does really well bringing it all together. And one of the things I like about this book is we see the whole all of it go together really well. And then I guess what happened, right, is originally he wrote this as a standalone, and then he came out later to his writers and he's like, oh, well, guess what? I actually have the total series in my mind.
Yeah.
And he was so famous at that point, like they weren't going to tell him no. So
Yeah.
the first book, you really get to see all of it, which is great. And then, in the subsequent books, he kind of uses a few here, but doesn't close the loop, but closes the loops in later books, which is really great too. You just have to kind of wait for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think he has such a talent of creating solid character arcs, right? I mean, with Kelsier and his evolution, a lot of these characters are not one-dimensional. They're very multi-dimensional characters, as we'll see. Not only with the heroes, but also kind of the villains, right? A lot of the times and I know the anti-hero trope is kind of overplayed in today's day and age, but in these books, it's done really well, right? And we'll talk about that a little bit later, but even all the way down to the main character, Vin, right? And how she's one of the main characters, right? But how she kind of starts off as this kind of mousy, insignificant, little girl that's grown up in a really harsh, brutal society and turns into basically the savior of the whole world, right? And so it's it doesn't just like pop, she's like the savior all of a sudden. Like Brandon does a really good job of molding each one of these characters to present them in a sensible way to achieve their penultimate goal. So
yeah. And the way the story was structured, I didn't think the ending was going to be the ending or it was going to happen, because this really huge event happens. And then it's like, oh, well, let's go kill the Lord Ruler. And like, what? There's only like 50 pages left. And it happens, and it's very well done. So yeah, a lot of depth to the story. So I do like what you said, Mark, as far as like, because as I was reading it, and then when I finished it, I was like, oh, that could have been a standalone story, because it has a beginning, middle, and end. And then you're just like, oh, well, if that would have ended, that would have been a good story, good book, right? So it is interesting how he was still able to do that, but yet set everything up it was very well planned, very well thought out, all that stuff. So kudos to him. But I wanted to focus on Kelsier, one of the main characters. I would say him and Vin are, the main characters of the story. Starts out with Kelsier. We get to know him first and what he's about. And when I first read it, I really liked him. I like, oh, this is the guy. He's a guy. I'm a guy. We relate. He does guy things, and that's sort of the bro code and all that. And I was like, yeah, I could do that too. That's how I would react. And so I really connected with him initially in my first couple of reads, and I still do. But this last read through, I was not. It wasn't that I wasn't liking him, but I liked him less in the sense that I realized how flawed and he's not a hero necessarily. He does heroic things, but he's pretty brutal. He sets up things in place, in motion, where he's killing people just because they're nobles or they're kind of rich people. He's all about taking them out, brutal fighting techniques and very stealth killings and things like that. And so it wasn't that I didn't like him, I just saw him in a different light this read through. I still liked him. I just realized, especially I think part of it is he comes into play later on in this Cosmere, and I started thinking let's just say it. He shows up in the Stormlight Archive, or at least his name is mentioned. And he's actually the leader of one of the factions that's the enemy in that whole series. And then we also see him later on in the Mistborn series in the second era. And I don't know, he's more cold. He's more calculating. He's not this friendly, in this first book, he was pretty relatable, personable, tried to make people laugh and all that stuff. And he changes a lot. And I think we see that genesis here at the end of this book when something happens where he feels that his brother was killed, and he just snaps. He's like, okay, it's done. I'm taking care of business right now. And I think that starts that journey for him. But as far as being a good leader, I'm not sure he is the best leader. He kept a lot of things from his group that were very important. He hid that from. He hid his final objective from them, to sacrifice himself to try and kill the Lord Ruler, which he didn't. And so they were just like, they're always wondering what was going on. Like, sure, keep some things back, but they seemed to be in the dark a lot of the times, and they were very frustrated. And so I don't know, what do you guys think as far as Kelsier was a good leader, good character? Where are you at with this? Kyle?
I think he was an excellent character.
Okay.
I think he was an effective leader, but I don't think he was a good leader.
Okay.
I think he was able to realize his goals, right? Because he was a very thorough planner, right? And he had the talent of like reading a situation or reading a particular scenario and coming up with the most likely conclusion, right? And so through that, he was, very effective in being able to I guess in the words of the A Train, make he loves it when a plan comes together, right? He could get that plan to come together, kind of a thing, right? But he did it in nefarious ways, right? He, like you mentioned, he held information back. He was very brutal in how he approached situations, right? And you often see very similar leaders in real world history, right? They're very flawed people. Mm-hmm. You think of even in World War II, like Winston Churchill and all these other folks that were very critical people to bring about change in their time, and they were not likable, right? They did some pretty underhanded things to bring about change in a rapid fashion. So I think Kelsier is kind of cut from the same cloth in that, no, he's not a perfect person, and he's not a quote unquote by moral standards good leader, but I think he's an effective leader. Yeah. He was able to get done what he had to get done.
Good points. Yeah. What do you think, Mark?
I think this kind of wraps into a couple things I've talked about before when I have to describe Kelsier. A couple of things. I think one, he is, when you break him down, he kind of shows that not all heroes are good. Right? He's a hero, no doubt. I think we finished the book, and I remember when I finished the book, I'm like, man, that guy is badass, right? Yeah. Like I just remember thinking, like, man, if I'm ever a hero one day, I wish I could do that, right? Like, yeah, I've got it in me to do that. Then later in the books, I'm like, okay, he's kind of a fool, he's like, not the best guy, kind of like you said. I think one of the reasons that we get to where he is at the end, right, without giving too much up, a lot of time passes, and he's no longer naive, right? Like to the world, to the universe, to what's going on. And so I think he has a lot less patience for, that other stuff. It's like, well, why am I going to joke here? This is serious business, right? Like, I don't have time. I've been around for a long time, but you know what I mean? So that's one. The next thing I think that we see Kelsier, the pathway to hell is paved with good intentions, right? Mm-hmm. He has all these good intentions, but he finds himself having to make the hard choice all the time. And that hard choice is often a very moral slippery slope. And eventually, as we see, that slippery slope starts defining who you are. And so we see him go from this great, shining character, and then later we see him in a different light. And it's not that he really changed his end goal a whole lot, like he's still fighting for this generally the same stuff on a bigger scale. But we just see his choices and they're so questionable over time, right? And so I think that's one thing that we see with Kelsier. But I like him, like as rough and gruff as he gets, I do like him. I want to be him when I grow up. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, very good points. I think I'm similar in the sense that I it's not like I don't like him. I still like him. I just saw him in a new light, this reread, and I was like, oh, okay. He's not this knight in shining armor. So I think it was me, my perceptions, my naive perceptions changed as to who he really is. And part of me is okay with that, with who he is. Because like Kyle was saying, you guys are saying, you need to have someone who does that type of thing to get results. Mm-hmm. So one thing I did want to bring up, in this book, we have Sazed, who is the terrace guy, who's the keeper. He's always talking about religions, right? Telling, hey, this religion and the history and how they helped people and then how they ultimately failed. One of the first ones that he brought up was Trell, and the religion, the god Trell, and the people that followed him. And that shows up later in the second era. It's a big part of the story. Yeah. So I was like, oh yeah. So yeah, there's some connections there, and between the series, and also there's a guy named Felt in this, one of the henchmen. It's one of the spies for Elend, and I believe he shows up in Storm. At least a guy named Felt shows up in Stormlight, and he's from Scadrial. So I don't know if it's the same guy, but it very well could be. So just some connections I noticed between this series, because he's a world hopper. It sounds like.
What's
it's
the hopper?
Yeah. So Kyle's gonna talk to us about the Lord Ruler. Who is this guy?
Yeah, so I mean, just kind of continuing on the leadership vein, it's interesting. So the Lord Ruler, aka God, in this time and era, like we learn that he actually started out as a terraceman, right? So spoiler, but yeah, we already told you there's going to be spoilers, so sorry guys. So he started out as a terraceman named Rashik, right? And he, like Justin mentioned, in classical Scadrial, right, there were all these prophecies of the Hero of Ages, right? And the Hero of Ages was prophesied to take the power of one of the shards and give it back, right? And Rashik, Rashik, the Lord Ruler, had an uncle named Quan, right? Mm-hmm. And Quan was a world keeper. I think that's what he was called, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that. But he was essentially a manager of prophecies for the Terrace and the Terrace religion. And one of those prophecies was the Hero of Ages. And Quan, after studying all these prophecies, found out or postulated that Alendi of the Hellenium, right? The Kelenium was supposed to be this Hero of Ages, right? And so they start prophesying this. They start bringing up, okay, if Alendi's the Hero of Ages, we need to get him to the Well of Ascension, which is essentially a place full of concentrated power from one of the shards of Scadrial, right? So preservation. And inside there, essentially, the person that goes inside that well essentially becomes a god incarnate for a finite amount of time and can reshape and do what they'd like with the world, right? And so the prophecy is that a selfless individual would take that power and give it back to the quote-unquote people, right? And so anyways, as time goes on, Quan reads deeper into the prophecies and finds that they're mysteriously changing, right? For some weird reason. And eventually, without kind of giving out too much from the next couple of books, discovers that, Alendi is not really supposed to be the Hero of Ages. He's not supposed to give this power back because bad things will happen. So he recruits his nephew, Rashik, to be one of Alendi's guides to the Well of Ascension and to do everything he can to prevent Alendi from taking the power at the well. And so the reason it's significant that Rashik comes into this is Rashik, aka the Lord Ruler, has a very a very disjointed view of the world, right? He's a racist person, right? He does not tolerate. He's very big on class structure, right? And really dislikes the Millennium, the race through which, or the organization, the society from which Alendi comes from, right? Mm-hmm. So they get to the well, and Rashik ends up killing Alendi, right? And he takes the power for himself. And instead of giving it back, like the prophecy says, he essentially remakes the world in his mindset. And this kind of plays into how we are presented with Scadrial when we start reading the book, right? There's a very defined class structure in that. You have him, who is God, right? He's created his own religion that worships essentially him. You have a very strict noble class, and you have a ska class, right? And so he creates all these in that he physically, in an effort to kind of burn the mist away and kind of save the world from the quote unquote deepness, which actually ends up being something else, right? In the long term, we'll get into other books, right? He moves the world closer to the sun, right? Which makes it really, really hot and unable to sustain life. And so, in order to combat that, he pulls out, like he creates the ash mounts and the volcanoes, right? But that puts all sorts of ash in the air. And so then he has to modify human biology, right? To be able to breathe ash, right? In that time, right? And so he modifies the people and quote unquote saves them from the deepness, or what he perceived as the deepness, and from what we find out later is a kind of a nefarious force named Ruin. And we'll talk about that some other time. But essentially, he creates this class structure that's very adherent to kind of his own ideologies, right? And so you get a very specific noble class that is essentially comprised of the people that he liked, right? The people that supported him when he got to the Well of Ascension. And then the Ska were the people that were against him when he got to the Well of Ascension, their descendants, right? And he actually creates very different physical attributes of these two classes, in that the nobles are generally more good looking and a lot smarter, but they aren't as fertile, right? They can't reproduce as easily. Whereas the Ska are much more mundane, basic, hardier folk, but they can they reproduce a lot easier, right? And there's all sorts of reasoning behind that. But from all this, while he had the well, he had all that power, right? He turned himself into a Mistborn, right? Because originally he was just a feruchemist because he was of Terrace descent, right? But he turns himself into a Mistborn and gains also a basic understanding of hemalurgy. And we'll talk about feruchemy and hemalurgy some other time. But through the power of all three of these arts, he's essentially able to turn himself into a godlike being, right?
An immortal being,
because he essentially between combining Alllomancy and feruchemy, he can store age, right, and never die. And he can give himself such drastic powers. He becomes a savant of all these different metals, to where it actually physically alters his biology such that the metals become part of him, right? And so to that end, he truly is an all-powerful person. And we see that when Kelsier tries to kill him, right? He's pierced with multiple spears and it has survived multiple assassination attempts. I think it even says he was beheaded once.
Yeah.
Right?
Burned alive,
all sorts of stuff, and it does nothing to him. Like, he just shrugs it off.
Regenerates.
And when he comes to confront Kelsier, when he tries to kill him, he's got multiple spears in him. He's basically been assaulted and everything on all sorts of fronts, and just comes up and slaps him and kills Kelsier like it's nothing, right? And so you can see how the Lord Ruler is this kind of all-powerful individual that created a world under, like his own kind of mentality. And he did it, and this is kind of where it gets into the anti-hero piece, right? Because yes, he is an extremely flawed individual, right? But in his mind, he's doing it to save the world from a greater threat, right? Something that only he and some of the very upper crust of his religion that he invented know about, and that, the influence of ruin.
Yeah.
Right.
And he hints at that at the very end of the book.
Yeah.
He tells Vin, like, you don't know what you've done. I've saved you. I keep you guys alive, or, whatever words he used. And she's like, what?
Right.
And so it kind of sets up more intrigue for the
right.
future stories.
So I was actually going to ask the same question that you did, Justin. Based off of that, is the Lord Ruler, or Rashik, is he a good ruler?
Yeah.
Because, technically, he saved everybody, right? Did it in a terrible way.
Yeah.
But what do you guys think? Is he a good ruler? Was what he did necessary to achieve the end result?
I would say no. What he did initially was not good. Changing everything. He killed the guy. He murdered someone so he could take power. So that's the foundation of his rule. But I think as he goes on, he tried to fix things, and that's cool. He kept things status quo, right? He provided for his friends, the nobles and their descendants. Mm-hmm. So that's good. He enslaved a whole population, so that's not good. I just think the negatives outweigh the positives, and he didn't do anything. Like, once he changed everything, he just like, okay, I'm the ruler now, I'm immortal.
Right.
Sweet, I'll just do what I want. But we don't even know what he did. Like, he just kind of hung out in his room, in that little room.
He literally did. Like, he wiped out religion. He allowed no technical progression.
Killed his own people, the terrorists.
Right.
Kind of did the breeding program there. So I would say no, he's not. He deserved to be overthrown. I think if he would have done that and then started to improve society, Scadrial as a whole, then maybe. But I don't think he did enough. Once he got to that high pinnacle, he didn't do anything with it to improve things. Yeah. And I think that's a good thing. That's a common theme we see with Sanderson's work, is these people become gods, and for better or worse, they rule until the normal people overthrow them or kill them, and then we don't know what's going to happen next. But that's a common thing, is I notice normal guys become gods, and they don't know what to do with that power.
Right. Yeah, and that's very apparent with Rashik here. Mark, what do you think?
Yes. Yeah, so is he a hero? Sure. By the definition, he saved the world.
Yeah.
And in his time. The thing is that Elend is the hero that Gotham deserved. But Rashik was the hero that they got, right? I mean, Elend was selfless, but he was also so naive as a hero character. He wasn't willing or understanding enough to actually save the world, right? If he would have took it, he would have gave it up because he is so selfless hero. Ruin would have won a long time ago.
Yep.
So, yes, he's a hero in that sense. However, he becomes a villain by using his hero status because he is the guy that, I'm the hero. I deserve to be number one. I deserve to be the king of the world and everyone to worship me because I'm the hero. And all my best friends shall be, number two in line. And everyone that didn't support me will F you. This is called a ska.
Right.
You know what
right.
I mean? And so his personality was that guy, right? We all know that guy. And, and then you give all the power to that guy. And so there's nothing good that comes of that, right? Over time, it's only going to get worse. We see later that all his friends that he, elevated soon became like strangers to him. They never talked to him. Like he became more and more in love with who he was.
Right.
So, I think he did a heroic thing, but I don't think we would actually in the end view him as a hero. I think it was good that he was replaced, but it almost ruined the world too. So it's kind of a tough one.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of a weird, like that's a full of dynamic there. I'm glad we got the story we got. It was really cool. Like, you know, at the end, like when he said that, I was like, I didn't understand it either. I'm like, what the heck? You know, like, am I missing something? You know? And then you get to the end of the second one and you're like, oh my gosh, you know, like this is craziness. So really great writing, really good arc. I don't know if I liked him as a character, but I thought he was a huge, like, you had to have him in there to make the Mistborn.
Yeah.
Right? You had to have that kind of arc. You had to have that kind of character. So I like him as far as what he brings to the story. I didn't like him as a person. I give him a 6 out of 10.
He's a solid 6. I don't know how he'd react to that. Solid 6 out of 10. You're probably getting the backslap like Kelsier did.
Yes.
Yeah, the one thing that I was always thinking about, just, you know, for random crossover purposes, is be like, okay, who would win in a fight? Is it going to be the Lord Ruler with all his metal mines charged, like everything set, like peak Lord Ruler power, or is it Rand al'Thor at the end of Memory of Light?
Ooh.
I think Rand.
I would think so. So my take was it's Rand, unless unless we're talking about the Lord Ruler in his ascended state when he's got the God power, right? Where he can literally move worlds. And so I think Lord Ruler takes Rand when he's absorbed the Well of Ascension, but in all other senses, I think Rand kills the Lord Ruler.
Yeah, I could go with that.
Be a good fight, though.
Be a heck of a fight. Two very different magic systems.
Well, do you think so? His downfall was Vin figured out the bands that he had. They come into play later. Bands of Mourning. Was that a good ending? Like, oh, I just got to take these things off, and he ages so fast he dies. I don't know. It seemed, I liked the twist, like, but it seemed a little simple. Like, oh, I just got to take these things off and I'm good. Then he wouldn't know, like, he doesn't do anything to protect himself, knowing that's how you kill him.
Mm-hmm.
I think he got overconfident, honestly, you know, because he had made such an effort to obstruct knowledge and obstruct, you know, understanding of how the world really was, that, you know, after 1,000 years, he's like, I mean, rebellions, and he even says it himself. He's like, you know, how many rebellions have I shot down? How many of these, you know, because it's more of an annoyance to him. It's like he just got overconfident to the point to where it's like, I don't even have to worry about this anymore because there's nobody that's as powerful as me. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and often
I can see that
solutions to very complex problems are simple things. And so, I don't know.
True.
My thought.
Well, and you can see that too with how complacent he gets, right? Like, if we look at the Second Age, the advancements that are starting to be made as, you know, the metals start becoming tested, and, you know, like experiments and new metals are born, et cetera. So he had all that information.
Yeah.
He could have done that, but he didn't, because he was comfortable. He believed in his God status, and there was no need for any of that. But he could have gone there where they went, you know, when we get into the Second Age, the Wax Wayne series. But, you know, I think that just shows that he became complacent, lazy, and fell in love with what he brought to the table.
Yeah. I want to know what he did, because, you know, again, he has all this power and he just kind of hangs out.
Right.
Like, what did he do something like the first couple 100 years, and then he's like, I don't want to do that anymore? Or was he just always just hanging out with his Inquisitor friends? And I don't know. It just seems like what did he do?
That's a good question. I mean, you meet Preservation later on, right? And you know, preservation loves him, like loves the guy because he's the guy that like keeps things status quo, right? But if you read about his backstory, he actually fathered multiple children, right? And he was very interested in maintaining his empire in the beginning, and kind of tried to make. I mean, you saw it. He set up storage caverns everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I think he took a genuine interest in it, but towards the end, I think he just got tired, right? And like the whole concept of immortality, right? You think once you've learned quote unquote everything, then what?
And then you have all the power, the riches,
you have
stuff.
Everything. Then what do you do, right? Yeah. And so, I mean, even in the end, it even said that he tried to end it all at some point, right? And I mean, that obviously never ended up happening, but yeah.
Okay. I would have liked to see what he would have become, or what would have happened if the well would have filled and he would have got that power again.
Yeah.
And this is why, because one, he knew what to do with it. Two, when he originally took the power, he was flooded with all this power and he didn't know what to do with it. And so he made all these quick decisions because the power is really quick. It's not like you have a whole lot of time.
Yeah.
And so, oh crap, I moved the world. Okay, let me fix it this way. So it was really knee-jerk reactions, but he knew what he needed to do to fix it. He just had to wait till the next time around. But he never got that chance, right? We never got the next time around. So I'd have been interested to see what happens. Okay, next time around, I fixed everything. The world is where it should be. The ash mounts are gone. People don't have to breathe this in. Maybe Ska are still Ska and blah, blah. But is there a reason for him to exist? Like, he was bored with life. He didn't go anywhere. He sit there. He ruled with an iron fist. And, he wasn't happy. We all knew that. And so do you think he continues to voluntarily be Lord Ruler? Or do you think he's like, I'm done with this. I'm taking off the bantam morning myself. Good luck. Like world's good. Don't go in here, but world's good.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
I've always wondered about that.
Yeah.
I mean, you get a little peek into his psychology when he dies and he goes into the spirit world and talks with Kelsier, right? And he says, there's a quote here. He says, "Only a year left. I was so close. I would have again ransomed this undeserving planet." Right? And so I think he probably would have saved it. I think he would have done exactly what you said, Mark, in that he probably would have saved the planet again. He probably wouldn't have just ended it all. But I think he would have wanted to step back and just say, I'm out because I'm done, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I like it. So we've talked a lot about these different powers, this magic system. We're going to address Alllomancy first, and then the next couple of books we'll talk about the other two one at a time. So, Mark, you've always appreciated Alllomancy and kind of how it works. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So in this book, we really get the basics with Alllomancy. It grows over time.
Mm-hmm.
I think in this book, really, we get like the 8 main medals and then 4 god medals. Is that
2.
what we call them, I guess?
Well, I guess
God
there's
medals?
3. We only get the 3.
Yeah. So, I mean, we don't get all the medals, but, they start
There's
introducing
4.
the basics.
Yeah.
Is there 4? Okay. Yeah, so we get like, we'll talk about it. So how Alllomancy works is not everyone has it, right? There's only specific people that have it. They all come from the upper class. Now, what's happened over time is this noble class has bred with the Ska. I don't know how can you say bred. They bred with the Ska. And it sounds so terrible. And so there's some Ska that do end up having allomantic powers, which is kind of interesting. I've always wondered, like if, and this is why Ska, have better endurance, et cetera, et cetera. They're built a little sturdier as people, even though they're not as strong. So would a Ska misting be able to beat a noble misting? Because they can, they have better endurance and stuff. Anyways, just food for thought. And then what happens is there's 2 types with this elemental power. You can be a Mistborn, which means you can use all the metals. There's, you can use whichever one you want. And then there's Mistings, which can only use one, right? And these Mistings, they're broken up in different groups. They have different names. So we can kind of go through those. The first one is going to be, timeout while I look, Steel. Steel's probably one of the more, sought after ones. They're called coin shots, and what they can do is they can push metal away from them, right? So if I have a coin in my hand, I can burn this metal, and the burning kind of happens within, right? So what they do is they carry around these vials, and they'll drink them. So if I'm a coin shot, I have steel, and I don't really know how it works, right? It's almost like it's steel mixed in a specific way, put in a vial, and then they drink it, and they can, replenish their reserves. Yeah. And they're not endless, obviously. If I am a coin shot and I push myself as hard as I possibly can, as high as I possibly can, I will burn through this metal much faster than, if I just use it a little bit over time. So they carry multiples with them. So coin shots, they can push metal away from them. Kind of an interesting thing because you can do a lot with that, right? I mean, I can hold a coin and then shoot metal through somebody. I can put it on the ground and go in the air and then jump to something else metal and almost fly, right? You're really just falling with style, but, kind of get that go. The next one is iron. It is the opposite of steel. You pull metal towards you, right? These are called lurchers.
Yeah.
And, so I have a hard time with this one because I don't really quite, I guess I could feel Jedi-y, right?
Yeah.
Right, but I don't know, this one's kind of, a little different because it's not like physics disappears, right? I can't grab a steel door that's closed and just pull it towards me. It's heavier than me. It's sturdier. I'm going to go towards it. So, there's some physics behind this, which is kind of neat, but I've often wanted to see one of those accidents happen, like pull on something and then, I'm too heavy or too light and then you're screwed. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet, but I want to see it. That would just be kind of cool, oh man, I'm an idiot. So there you go. The next is pewter. I don't actually.
It's a strength.
Pewter come from? Huh?
Pewter.
Well, I know it's a strength.
Yeah.
But I don't. How do you?
I think it's an alloy, right? What's the opposite of pewter?
Tin.
Yeah, I think pewter's an alloy.
Yeah, it's an alloy. Okay, so pewter they are thugs, is what they're called, and they increase their physical strength. So I don't really know how strong. I don't think it actually gives. Obviously, I think a Mistborn can burn more, maybe, so they can be stronger. But it seems like there's a limit to this. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't just burn so much and then, pick up the Empire State Building, but I could probably pick up a car. Right?
Yeah.
So I don't really know how the limit on this works because, if I tried to pick up a car right now, it would crush me. But obviously, I become stronger. So it's kind of weird how that one works. But there you go, you become stronger. So
Well, there was that piece where Vin and Kelsier ran for 16 hours straight with their pewter. It strengthened their muscles so they could, and also helped them run faster. So I don't know. It seems kind of strange that it strengthens your body, but you still suffer the consequences later. You're super tired and sleep for a couple days.
They got that pewter burn or something like that.
Yeah.
Pewter drag.
Yeah. I do remember that. So there you go. So there are consequences. It sounds like you could actually run yourself to death. So there you go. The next is tin. Tin sharpens your senses, so I can hear way better. I can see way better. Just sharpens your sensors like crazy, right? These are called, what are they? Tin eyes?
Tin eyes. Yeah.
Yep, tin eyes. So they're called tin eyes. It says the downside, I'm just reading this right here. The downside of being a tin eye is that overstimulation can be far more dangerous, making them vulnerable to sudden changes in the environment. So, again, consequences like if I burn tin eye to see something better and it's 5 degrees outside, I might be in trouble. So that's kind of a cool. I like one thing I can really appreciate with Brandon Sanderson is there is no Superman powers, which means they're just too good, right? Like there is consequences to everything. If I want to do this, I have to make sure I understand what I'm getting myself into. I can't just nilly-dilly use whatever I want and things are all good. So I appreciate that. Next we'll talk about is Zinc. These are called rioters. They basically toy with your emotions. They can help rile up a crowd, to start, chanting, F you, we won't go, whatever, right? They will, they just kind of, riot the crowd in one way or the other.
Influence emotions, right?
Yeah, influence emotions, exactly. But it like enhances their emotions.
Yeah, like inflames them, kind of a thing, right?
Yeah. Yep, inflames them. So if I'm sad and I've got a writer, I'm going to be super sad, right? I'm going to be bawling my eyes out. I'm going to be, looking for a Xanax, right? Like trying to calm down, right? Like it's going to push me really over the edge. But the opposite is brass, and those are called soothers, and it reduces emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so if people are getting angry, it'll dampen that. They're not as angry. I'm not as sad. Things like that. So kind of the opposite. There's a time and place for all of them. Next one is bronze. These are called seekers. What bronze does is that they can tell when other people are burning metals. Does it tell them what metals they're burning, or does it just show their location? I know you're burning a metal. I don't know which one.
Well, some Mistborn can't. Like Vin was able to figure out, they're burning steel, like based off the vibrations or whatever.
Right.
But not everyone can do that.
Oh, that's right.
Right. So the vibration, like the wavelength that they feel, right, that tells them what metal they're burning. And I think they get like a sense of location?
I think so.
Like they can point where it's coming from.
Yeah, I think it's general location, right? Because we see that in the book, right, where the what's their name? The Inquisitors show up and they're in the general area, but they're not like it is that person, right? Like they can narrow it down, I'm sure, but if they're a little bit of ways, it's not like they know exactly. Like, it's the tall bald guy that's 6'7". You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something like that. But
I wish I could burn. I wish I could burn steel or pewter.
I'd be down with that.
So, yeah, for sure. Then we have
Copper.
And they're smokers or copper clouds, right? Smokers? Okay.
Yeah.
They create a copper cloud, but they're called smokers. That's what it is.
Right.
So they're smokers, and basically they protect themselves from a seeker. They hide themselves from being able to be detected. But if I remember right, we saw somebody break through this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone was using their smoking ability, but a really powerful Alllomancer can break through that and actually find him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's Vin, basically.
Yeah, Vin, the Lord Ruler could pierce copper clouds too.
Yeah, Lord Ruler.
Yeah, so there you go. So those are kind of like the main 8. There's more later. We'll talk about those as they come up, but those are the main ones. Then we have. Go ahead.
I was going to say, there's the mental area and the physical area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they're categorized that way.
Yep. So we see those. So those all have names. This next one is big, Adium. So this is known. Is this one of the god metals? Is that what they're called?
Yeah, from Ruin.
Yes. So Adium. This allows people it's super rare. It's not everywhere. But it allows Mistborns. So you have to be a Mistborn to use it. You're not just born to use Adium.
That'd be interesting, right? If someone they have all these different categories, but yet someone's like a ATM user, Adium user. That was like their thing. That'd be kind of cool.
I thought there wasn't there a noble at the end of book 3 that was an ATM misting?
I don't remember.
Is it Adium?
ATM, I don't know. It's one of them.
Yeah, say it
Okay.
how you like. It's a made up language. We say how we want.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. But what this allows you to do is pretty much, it allows you to see the future of somebody else. So the good thing about this is we see it, and how rare it is if you're fighting another Mistborn and they don't have Adium, you can actually see what they're going to do in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so that allows you to, obviously move out of the way and stab them in time or whatever you're doing, right? So very valuable. The way it's canceled out really is through somebody else burning Adium.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes a fight. Who has the most Adium?
Yeah. Who has the biggest chunk?
Right? Yeah, someone's going to run out sooner or later, and whoever runs out first is losing that fight.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a couple fights, right, that we see where they're actually trying to, see how long they can last, who's got the most. And it's kind of fun. It's an interesting one. What else do we see? We see, is it Durilium?
Duralaman, right?
Duralaman.
Yeah,
Do we see that one?
We see it, but I don't think we know that's what it is, because it enhances, it makes you stronger using another metal. So if I'm a coin shot, and then I'm and I can use Durilium, so not really a coin shot. If I'm a Mistborn and I'm using coin shot, if I burn Durilium, it makes it stronger.
Oh yeah,
so
that's right.
I'm a coin shot plus, right? So that's good. So I think we see it, but we don't know that we see it.
Yeah, those are the enhancement ones.
Yeah, we do see chromium, which destroy, it kills all your reserves, right? So if I've got a bunch of metals in me as a Mistborn and someone burns it, it burns all my metals out of me. Basically, is what it does, right?
Yeah, they did that. The one Inquisitor, it was Inquisitor or Obligator? Inquisitor, right?
Inquisitors.
Inquisitor,
yeah.
Did that to Vin when she was imprisoned. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. But I couldn't remember what it was. So yeah, chromium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, chromium. So I think those are the main ones that we see in this book. But we hear Kelsier always talking about the 11th metal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it the 11th?
The 11th. Metal? Well, what's gold?
11th metal.
Gold is which? That's
I don't
gold.
Temporal.
So that's the 11th metal.
No, the 11th metal is the opposite of gold. Because gold, you see the past. No, you see the... Is it the past?
Gold reveals your past self.
Yeah, your past self.
Your own past, yeah.
And then the 11th metal, it kind of did the same thing though, right?
So you have atium and then malatium. So atium reveals others' future. Malatium allows you to see in another person's past.
So malatium was the 11th metal?
I think malatium was the 11th metal.
And then gold was
yeah,
gold.
It must have been, right? Because
right.
He burns it, right? He takes it. He's like, I've got the 11th metal. Takes it, and he's like, yeah, I've got you. Burns it. Sees this guy. He's like, what the heck? And then dies.
Right.
So, I mean, he doesn't die. But so we see some of them. We see more of them over time. There's a ton of them. I think all in all, there's 8, 12, 14, I think there's 20.
Right. Just found out you can be an ATM misting. They're called seers. and there's a noble at the end of the third book that's running Fadric City named Lord Yeoman, who's an obligator, and he's a seer. He can burn atium, and only atium.
Huh. Interesting. That'd be a rough one.
Yeah.
Do so long, right? So, well, there we go. So yeah, I think there's 20 main metals. We didn't talk about all 28. Like, there's more, right? I mean, we've got Trillium that we run into later. We have Larissa, right? So some of them are really like off. There's one like Necrosil. I don't ever remember. Like, I'm just reading this. I don't ever remember hearing about that. That one, it says enhances target's next metal burned.
Yeah, I don't remember that one either.
Yeah, I don't think
it's like Duralumin, but it's a separate one. Interesting.
I think I recall them like studying it in the second era, the Necrosa, however you say it, right? But I don't think it was ever used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did.
So,
yeah.
Anyways, so those are those ones. What do you guys, if you were just a misting, the main 8, okay? Because we would all choose Seer, right? Because get real, I would win the Powerball 15 times in a row, and then I'd be happy, right? Like, so the main 8, what power would you guys have? Like go to
just one? Like if we were misting, or we could...
Steel, all the way.
You're a misting.
I'm doing steel.
Okay, so coin shot, right?
I'm a coin shot. Yep. Oh, I don't know.
I'd be pewter. I'd want that strength. Go to the gym and just, kill it every day. Run as fast as I can. Jump as high as I want.
Do we have permission to call you a thug?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Thuggy.
Justin's a thug.
Yep.
What about you, Mark?
It's a tough one. Jeez. It depends what age I'm in. If I'm in this first age, strength for sure, I think. Just the way everything is, right? I think that would be really the most handy. I don't know, it just seems like more ancient world, right? Where something like that would be more valuable. I think if you're talking second age, wax and wane era, steel for sure. Right, because there's steel everywhere.
Yeah.
You're basically in the late industrial era, and so there's steel everywhere. I think you'd be so effective because it's everywhere. But I think in the first era, unless you're carrying bags and bags of coins with you, you could get an area where you're like, well, this is worthless. Like, let me throw a rock at him and hope they're stealing it.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I didn't think about it that way. Yeah, maybe steel's definitely not as valuable in the first stage here.
Yeah. Well, didn't you have to use the opposite of it to like jump and land?
Oh, like the lurcher. So like iron.
Yeah. So you'd have to have both for it to be like cool.
Because coins existed.
Yeah.
Right. So they could use coins and then like
throw them.
You had to be a heck of a balance act, like being able to, jump off a coin and then like use it to slow yourself down, I guess. But yeah, I bet it's in the first stage, it's a lot easier if you're a Mistborn and you can push and pull.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Because when they do that long run, there's like anchors in the ground already. Like someone had made these trails or something. So they kind of pushed off and then pulled themselves to the new one, pushed off, right? But if you could only push, that'd be, you know what I mean? Like you flick your coin on the ground and push, and then it's quicksand. It's rough.
Well, you'd push yourself up, and then you just kind of like,
You better throw a coin really well when you're going down.
Well, you wouldn't be able to pull the one behind you.
Right.
Like you couldn't pull the one you used back to you to put it back down.
That's called traveler's fee, right? You got to have it's going to cost you so much to go to the next place. You got to keep throwing those coins down.
Yeah.
That's when you find out if someone gave you a bag of fake coins.
Some chocolate coins.
Worst day ever. So yeah, kind of interesting. But I like this system. There's three more. Or two more. We'll talk about the other two as time goes on. But out of the three, on the face value, I like this one the best.
Yeah.
Of the three, yep.
I don't think I ever understood hemorrhagy. Like I understand the basic of it, but it seems like maybe it's just how it interacts with all of them. I think I still need to figure that out.
Yeah,
I feel like
hemalurgy.
hemorrhage, it's like the bridge between the two, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe.
I've always wondered if, so given that hemalurgy and we'll talk about this later, obviously, but it kind of steals power from the subject, right? I almost wonder if it could be used elsewhere in the Cosmere, right? And so to not just steal allomantic powers, but also steal like, an Elantrian's power or, maybe some sort of shard bearer's power. So I don't know.
Yeah.
So I asked this to Brandon Sanderson.
Oh, you did?
And I
Okay.
said,
Now I'm super stoked. What did he say?
I said, could somebody from another planet or another world use these powers or have these powers used against him? He said, yes, but they wouldn't be as effective. I don't know what that means. So it sounds like they could, but you're not going to get,
full
it's not going
effect.
to be like a full effect like we see here. So,
Gotcha.
And I don't know why. I don't know if that's a physical thing, or if I try to steal, Scadrial power, how dulled down is it? I'm 50% of the Elantrian.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think
But that was pretty awesome.
Yeah. I think I read that the powers, what do they call it? The power investiture is the strongest in the planet that it's originated from, right? But then we got in the Lost Metal, we got someone from Cell going to Scadrial with their Aeon Door juice, their jar of pure Aeon Door, and they're able to use it just fine. Like there's no decrease in power. They have the same capabilities. She uses the stamps. And then we got the other people with the sand, the one guy with this using the sand to build walls and stuff. So that doesn't seem like they're decrease in power very much. So I don't know. What's that about?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then we're seeing in Stormlight how they're using aluminum to kind of shield themselves from the power, the power there from the bad guys. I got too many names going through my head. The slaves from the Stormlight. What's their names?
Oh, the Parshendi?
Yeah.
Oh,
the Parshendi. They're able to shield. Like they have this room in one of the cities where they're able to. It's covered in aluminum, so they can use their riders, their Spren riders, right?
Oh.
To communicate, and then the Parshendi can't see them using that power.
That's interesting.
With the aluminum.
I wonder if that's kind of a similar, because like in the Second Age, these people wear to prevent like mental allomancy.
Yeah.
Right? They wear aluminum in their hats.
Yeah.
Right? And so I wonder if like the Parshendi, when they're kind of converted into, from Parshman to Parshendi, right? If it's a form of, obviously it's, it has to do with odium, right? And everything else like that. But if it's a similar concept to mental allomancy, and granted, I mean, odium, totally different shard, right? Not part of preservation or ruin, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they all came from Adonalsium, right? And so I would imagine that they have similarities, and so
some crossover
there. So that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, then we're also seeing Navani create these fabrioles with metal, and so I'm like, well, the metal planet is Scadrial, so
right,
and we're going to see some crossover. We're already starting to see crossover there between the different worlds. So what effect is this Alllomancy going to have on Roshar?
Yeah.
Like, is there going to be some carryover there? And how's that going to interact with the gems, the Sprins, and the Fabularals, and all that stuff? So I think we'll see a lot of that in this 5th Stormlight book.
Yeah.
Because he's hinted at it a lot lately in the past couple books that he's released.
When's that 5th one coming out? End of this year, right?
Yeah, like November,
Man.
I think.
So here's a question. This is a little far left field for anyone that hasn't read all the books. Lerasium.
Mm-hmm.
We know there's one nugget left, right?
I think so, yeah. Who has it?
So, I don't remember.
Like,
If I remember right, there's one nugget left.
like after the Catasandra, when Sazed like changes everything. Spoiler alert. Right? There's still one nugget after that.
Yes, there's still one nugget there because it's still there when Kelsier is in his ghost form.
Oh, good point. Good point. Yeah.
Elend took one.
Right.
Someone else took the other one, right? Because there was 3. So, anyways, there's one left. So, if you eat it, it bestows all elementic powers. Great. So, anyone from any world could eat it. But if you use hemerurgy on it, it steals all powers from somebody. So, the idea is, are we going to see someone ingest it, or are we going to see someone use it in a way to steal powers from someone else? Because it sounds like you can do one or the other. Can't do both.
Who would you steal powers from? And what power? Would it be all Alllomancy? Would it be Feruchemy? Or all 3 of them? Like Lord Ruler style?
I'm thinking outside the world. If I'm already because I think we're going to see a Mistborn again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We haven't really seen one since the first stage, but I think we're going to see a Mistborn again, and I think they're going to use that to steal somebody's powers from another world. We're going to see hemerurgy used outside the world. And then they're not only going to be a Mistborn, but they're going to be a whatever else.
Yeah.
I could see that as a creation of some sort of like either super villain or like Superman superhero kind of a thing. I don't know. It could go either way.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what he's going towards is we're going to have all these Scadrial powers. We're going to have the Roshar powers. We're going to have the Aeondor from Cell.
Right.
Stamps. We're going to have, what's the other one? Just all these things, the songs, the colors, right? That's all going to come together into one thing for some reason. But if you create this Superman or Supermen, who are they fighting, right?
Right.
Who's the threat that's big enough that they need to do these things to combine everything to fight something? What is it?
Who's the Thanos of the of the
after they clicked all the Infinity Stones of investiture, who's Thanos? And I don't think it's Ruin.
No,
I think Ruin. He's confined to Roshar, but yet at the same time he's not this big bad.
He's just one shard.
Yeah.
Right. And quite frankly, right now, I mean, it's Ruin and Preservation are together in harmony, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's not Ruin. Could it be Odium?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Odium.
Odium.
He's confined to Roshar.
Yeah.
But he's not. Well, I guess what's his name? Tarvingian just took over. So he's a new Odium, right?
Yeah.
So maybe he's like has that super smart brain. So maybe he's like stepping up his game, his villain game, and he'll do something. I don't know.
And he's Taravangian. He's super smart. So with that kind of shard investiture, he could put 2 and 2 together and essentially say, okay, with this last Lerasium nugget, I could essentially. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because he seems to be a combination of the two. Because he visited cultivation,
right,
and got his super brain from her, and then now he's combined with Odium. And Honor's dead, so he's kind of a combination, like Sazed is a combination,
right,
of the two. So I don't know. I'm curious to see where all this is going. I don't think we'll see it for another 10 years.
Sanderson can't turn into a George R.R. Martin or anything else like that. He's got the dude is a machine. He can put these things out, but I worry as he gets older if he can continue at the same pace.
Yeah. All right. So that's Alllomancy. I think it's a good basis for what comes the back half of this Cosmere series. I think it'll transcend Scadrial.
Yeah.
And somehow right now it's already starting to combine, at least the metals are starting to combine with the fabrials of Roshar.
Yeah, that's true.
Like the different metals. I don't know. But I don't think anybody on Roshar can access the metal power piece to it.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Anyways. Cool. Well, thanks, Mark. Any other comments on Alllomancy? I have a question is like, how do they burn it? Like, and then when you burn it, what is it? Like, I don't get the application. Like, I get it. You ingest it. It's power. You have like what in you allows you to access power to manifest it.
Heartburn.
Yeah.
That's what I was like get it in there and you're like, oh.
So the investiture on each planet is different. And on Scadrial, it's metal. So maybe as you burn the metal, it absorbs into your body and you can use that investiture, that power to do these things. But how do you burn it?
Yeah, I don't know. There was that short story of a similar concept on Roshar with the little girl who Lift, right? And so like she had to eat stuff and quote unquote burn it. Like it didn't matter, it was just food.
Yeah.
Right? But I wonder if they kind of work in a similar way where she had finite reserves of burning her awesomeness, right? Because she goes awesome, right?
Yeah.
And gets really slick, but yeah, I don't know. Like,
yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know. I wonder if it's kind of a similar concept on other planets, and it's more of just like an inherent ability, and it doesn't really have to do with digestion or anything else like that. But
absorption,
or yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be something they can like somehow, right? Because they talk about slow burning it or like flare it or things like that, right? But like, there's got to be. It can't just be mental strength. Right? You know, like flame on. So I just don't know. Yeah, they don't ever explain what it is. Just said burn it. You know. You got to burn.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that description. I will burn it. You know, like
let's burn
it,
bro.
Everyone seems to understand it, and obviously, like Min picks it up very, very quickly.
I know.
So
Kelsey's like, yeah, just burn it.
Yeah.
She's like, oh yeah. She's like, oh yeah, I see it in my body. Okay, I'll burn it.
Yeah. So there you go.
Cool. All right, Kyle, you got a top 5 for us?
I do. It kind of ties to what we were just talking about. I was thinking about if I had to pick top 5 metals, allomantic metals, right? Not necessarily getting into ferrochemy or anything else like that, but top 5 allomantic metals. Instead of just picking one, if I had to do the top 5, number 5, 1 being the best, 5 being the 5th best. 5, I'm sorry, Justin, it's pewter. I like pewter. I think it's awesome, but it's number 5 out of the 16, right?
Yeah,
so it's still up there, right? But
top tier.
So it's pewter, atium, right? I think it's still up there, and you're totally right, Mark. Like, who in their right mind wouldn't pick atium? But yeah, I don't know. I had ones that were higher up the list for me for some funny reason, and so the atium was definitely in the top 5. It was number 4 for me. Zinc, right? So being able to inflame emotions. That was number 3. I don't know why I rated that above atium though.
Well, that would go good with your wife, right?
My wife was in the room when I made this list, and so I don't know.
She's getting a little pissed off.
That she's
burn some zinc.
Oh, well, if I burn zinc, it'd just piss her off more. That'd be even worse.
Yeah, that's true. But you need to soothe her.
That's soothe. Yeah, I need some brass. And so, 1 and 2 really just kind of play into my love for the second series. 2 is Ben Dalloway, and then 1 is Steel. Right. I love the concept of being able to speed up time. Right. That like what Wayne can do. Yeah. Right. And so I think in the second age, right, that would probably be my list, right? Even though in the second age, zinc isn't nearly as powerful because everybody's wearing aluminum lined hats, right? And atium is virtually non-existent.
Yeah, doesn't exist.
Right. But Ben Dalloway and Steel, man, that would be so much fun.
Yeah.
That'd be so cool to have. And then if you can have your funny accent like Wayne, just there's the icing on the cake. And so
cool. I like it. Oh, let's see. So hot take. We've talked about a lot. Some of the things I was thinking of, we kind of already talked about them. But I guess what I'm thinking is, as I was reading this story, and on a spiciness level, I'd say it's not quite top tier. It's middle of the pack. But I think it's still spicy. Like out of 10, it's probably like a 7. You guys let me know. But as I was reading Mistborn Book 1, we are introduced to Vin and how she's like this lowly, not very confident person, and she gains her powers and gains confidence and so on, and she grows as a character, and then she becomes very powerful and adept at what she's doing. But a lot of it is she spends time in this noble world at the balls, dancing, meeting them. At first she's very timid, but then she kind of gets it. But then she's also Vin the Ska, and then Vin the Mistborn. And so she kind of goes back and forth with, who am I? Am I this person? Am I that person? And the whole time I'm thinking, this is Shallan. We're reading Shallan 1.0, basically. Right? Because it's the same thing. Just Shallan takes it to the next level where she's actually like has multiple personalities that take over her in different situations. But I basically saw them as the same person. Not like literally like they're not crossing and they're not world hoppers, but the template is the same, in my opinion. Little variances, little discrepancies, but basically the same. And it was disappointing because I was like, oh man, why are we getting a redo with Shallan in Stormlight? I like them both in their respective stories and their books and their powers and all that stuff. But I guess I was just wanting, it's kind of a trope. Like, oh, whether it's a male or female, right? Oh, lowly person, not very much confidence. It has power, has a mentor, learns how to use the power, becomes confident, and then is also kind of crazy. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Is that, do you see that? Am I off base? What do you think?
I think you're right. I hadn't thought about it that way. Now that I do, now I'm a little sadder.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, you're right. It's basically different power systems, different worlds, right? That's basically the same character arc.
Same story arc, yeah.
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 Oh man. That's saddening. That's sadly spicy.
Yeah.
It's sad spice.
Maybe book 2. I don't remember much because it's been a while. Maybe it diverts from that.
Maybe.
But from now, book 1, it's basically Shallan has been 2.0.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I can agree with that. Same type, troubled past, dead mentor. You know what I mean? Has to create your own way.
Yeah.
Fumble it as you go, etc. Make terrible choices.
Yeah. Yeah.
kiss the wrong guys, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, like definitely, I think that yeah, I can see that. I know this is your hot take, but adding on to it,
Yeah, go ahead.
we will see Minigan.
Vin?
Yeah, we'll see Vin.
I think so too. So I think she was built up through 3 books, and then she dies.
Right. And then she's like, poof, gone.
Yeah. She's like, reaches her peak, and then she dies. Same with Elend.
Elend, yeah.
I think we'll see him. But if we don't, I don't really care if we don't see him. He was cool, but Vin is gonna.
They got to bring her back somehow.
If they can bring back Kelsier,
True.
I think we'll see kind of the same, because they got the whole thing where, especially on Roshar, everyone dies and they go to the Tranquiline Halls, and it's like a physical place that they go to, right? So I think it's a similar situation where Vin goes there, because we kind of see it in one of the books. I can't remember who dies. Was it Kelsier? He goes and visits Sazed.
Right, in the
He's
spiritual realm or whatever.
Yeah, and he's like, if you go down that path, you're done. No, it was Wayne.
Oh, it's Wayne.
It's like, if you go this way, you're done. And he's like, well, I'm going. Right. And it seems like there was an option where he could have not gone, because Kelsier didn't go.
Right.
I think a similar thing happened to him. So I think we, like Mark said, I like it. I like that hot take.
Well, and then Sazed said, because he asked, is she gone? Is she gone forever? And Sazed was like, no, they're happy or whatever. They just, they're probably not coming back, kind of thing. But he obviously knows where they are. He obviously knows that they exist on some plane, so they can come back.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we'll see some of that. I wonder who determines who comes back, and if they want to come back, and why would they come back. Yeah, that would be interesting to see how that plays out.
Unfinished business.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Again, I think it goes back to the threat. Who's the Thanos? Who's showing up to kick, ruin, destroy the universe, the Cosmere.
Yeah.
Whimsical.
Yeah, that's true. They did kind of allude to that in Lost Metal, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Whimsy.
Who?
Whimsy.
Oh, okay.
There's the whole red and gold soldiers.
Right.
And all that.
Of autonomy, right? No. I think it was autonomy.
Okay, so that's someone else, but they have talked about Whimsy and how she's, or I don't know if it's a he or she.
Supposedly the most powerful or most dangerous shard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they haven't really, I think they've name dropped it a couple times is all. Haven't really explained anything.
Interesting.
So there we go.
Yeah, good stuff. I like it. Well, thanks everyone for sticking with us in this Credible Nerds podcast as we do our Cosmere commentary on Mistborn Book 1. We'll be back with Book 2, Well of Ascension, and we'll continue the story of Vin and Elendil. Eventually, we'll get to Kelsier. What's that? The secret history of Mistborns or something?
Yeah.
We'll get into that after Book 3, because that's when most of it takes place. But yeah, like the podcast, like the video, follow us on YouTube. We appreciate that. And as always, there's always another secret. So thanks, guys, for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
See you later.
See you guys.